Dear friends, we are happy to present a technical talk by Professor Gopalan Jagadeesh. He is currently working as a senior professor in the Department of Aerospace Engineering at the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru. He is the founder chairman of the Center of Excellence in Hypersonics, IISc Bengaluru. He mentors several startups on the matters related to aerospace and biomedical engineering, which were formed with equity participation from IISc to commercialize several of his discoveries related to shock waves. Professor Jagadeesh is one of the leading researchers in hypersonic aerothermodynamics and shock wave propagation in complex fluids, which are advanced fields of research relevant to space, defense, and innovative terrestrial applications. He has published over 350 papers in peer-reviewed international journals and has presented his findings in several conferences and has edited 3 books. He has 25 patents on various discoveries related to shock waves and hypersonic flow control. He is currently the president of the International Shockwave Institute, Japan, and also the Society for Shockwave Research, India. He is a fellow of the prestigious Royal Aeronautical Society, UK, Indian Academy of Sciences, National Academy of Sciences, National Academy of Engineering, and an associate fellow of the American Institute for Aeronautics and Astronautics. He has been bestowed with several awards in recognition of his professional achievements. Recently, he was bestowed with the prestigious Rajyotsava Award 2023 by the Government of Karnataka for significant lifetime contributions to science and technology. Professor Jagadeesh is very passionate about inculcating his scientific temper in the public, especially among rural children. He has interacted with over 5,25,000 high school and college students in India till date to propagate the benefits of shockwave research and the spirit of innovation.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am so glad to deliver this lecture on a wonderful occasion of celebrating the Diamond Jubilee of a very great institution located very close to Bangalore, Siddaganga Institute of Technology. I have had very fond memories of this wonderful institution, which was built by the philanthropy of one of the greatest saints of modern India, Sri Shivakumara Swamiji. We are so lucky that we all lived in an era where a man of that stature, who has contributed immensely to education, social good, and whatnot. What I would try to do today in the next maybe 20 odd minutes is to essentially tell you where industry is heading, what kind of disruptions are happening today in the current day scenario, and how are we able to cope up to this kind of a era in some sense of a disruptive technology. In fact, I would rather title my presentation to you as Emergence of Industry 5.0 and its own impact on an avalanche of disruptive technology. I work in the Department of Aerospace Engineering in the Indian Institute of Science, and what we are witnessing in the world in the last, say, for example, 20-30 years is something unbelievable. This world has not seen these kind of changes in the last maybe 300 years of its existence. Indian Institute of Science itself is in some sense a result of a disruption that took place way back in 1909 when the Queen of Mysore Kingdom, Maharani Kemparajamani Vanivilas Sannidhana, decided to join hands with Tatas and donate this 450 acres of lush green campus situated in Bangalore today. Friends, it may appear more like a story when that great man J.N. Tata, when he passed away, he divided his property into 2 halves and he wrote a property in Indian Institute of Science of name, and even today we get rent from certain properties which are located in Nariman Point, Mumbai. Not only he ensured that the operational expenditure of this yet to be born institution is ready, but he also ended up giving a very large sum of money for the initial establishment of this institution. Swami Vivekananda played a very major role, and in fact there are letters written by J.N. Tata to Swami Vivekananda asking him how his own idea of combining ancient aesthetics with modern science led to the establishment of Indian Institute of Science, and the first batch of students were admitted in 1909. But it is very interesting in many sense, because Industry 5.0 as we see today is something which actually came on the horizon during the COVID pandemic. People have talked about several industrial revolutions, starting from the Industrial Revolution in 1784, 1870, 1969, and maybe in 2011. All of them have had a level of change that this world has not seen before, starting from the electrical energy, mass production, and so on. But just to put a long story short, Industry 5.0 essentially refers to an industrial revolution where from mass production today we are moving towards mass personalization. From mass production we are moving towards mass personalization. Now this is a big change in several things. What do we really mean by mass personalization? I have a mobile phone today, but I want it in such a manner that it is exclusive to me. Man has come from a long way. Probably they say that it has taken something like 35 million years from an amoeba to become a human being. It's not a small journey. Homo sapien has actually come on to dominate this entire world in such a manner that we are today not only destroyed this entire world to some extent, but we are now trying to fight wars with the nature with never-ending results. While man started from amoeba and then became one of the finest creatures in the mankind or this entire universe has seen, it is also interesting for us to understand that notwithstanding all our scientific expositions till date, there is no life existing anywhere else in the universe. We do not have scientific evidence of some people, aliens being there. We all talk about so many things, but the fact is we simply do not have any evidence. Although in recent time people are saying exoplanets have an atmosphere similar to Earth and things like that, but the very fact is we do not have any other place where life exists. Which means while we have continued to dominate and use the Earth's resources in a manner that we think that we are the emperors of the universe, it is also important for us to understand what this wonderful creature which has taken 35 million years to evolve. The human body, if you really look at it, has about 37.2 trillion cells which are all working in unison. Friends, this is not a small number. In fact, it is almost equal to 4,700 times the world's population. And I don't think any of you would have imagined that every second while we are speaking, there are a million reactions that take place in a cellular system in this human body. There is more than 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels which actually flow through our body. A single pump called heart keeps on pumping blood till of course we end up going to the grave. There are close to 100 billion neurons in our brain. I don't think, notwithstanding the emergence of artificial intelligence and many technologies which are all created by humans, you can never ever create a body which is as complicated as humans. Which means that it is in this context that one has to look at how disruptions of the future are going to change the way we live. Probably what would happen in the year, say, 2047, when we are all talking about celebrating 100 years of the existence of this great nation after independence. Now, if you look at future technologies, it is this wonderful message of how we are able to preserve our culture and nature and then decide about the future. Unless the human being is going to live in complete harmony with the external nature, I don't think we have any future in real sense. I say this with a lot of responsibility. You might have observed that this particular summer in southern peninsula of India was so bad. Temperatures in a garden city of India was consistently more than 40 degrees centigrade. The climate change, friends, is here to stay. The resources that we have, they are all limited. You may be surprised, in last year in June 2023, there was a paper in Journal of Geophysical Letters where for the first time people showed that if you drill bore wells and exploit water, we have exploited so much of water that the North Pole has actually moved by 6 centimeters. There can be no limit to the greed of a human being in trying to have resources, consume it forever. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi puts it as there is enough for everybody's need, but not for everybody's greed. We have exploited groundwater. We have also exploited virtually every resource today. So the future emergence of any conflict or even disruption, resources are going to play a very, very important role. Friends, you may be surprised, 90% of the food we eat, the majority of the water that we drink, the air we breathe in, these are all there only to keep the close to 85% of the microbiota in our body. We have virus, bacteria and whatnot. In fact, whatever we eat is not for our own, satisfying the taste of our taste buds, but it is actually to keep that balance right. The probiotic and the antibiotic system that we have inside our body needs to be in complete harmony. If there is no harmony with the outer nature and the inner nature, there can be no future. So the most of the thing, if you really see, there are three important parts that I would like to highlight here. One, of course, maybe it may sound a little spiritual, but then we need to look at our body. The Dehasthiti, as it is called, is an extremely important component. If we can know our Manosthiti, Dehasthiti and Atmasthiti, then Paristhiti can take care of itself. Unfortunately, we don't realize how important it is to have a healthy mindset. When I say conscience, it is the conscience of the entire nature. Almost all the conflict, the emerging technologies, the disruptions are all happening because the collective conscience of a nation and the national ethos is not being respected by people today. So we need to have sync between the resources, the knowledge and the information. Future war or future conflict can be a very, very interesting thing. I actually feel many people keep asking, what are the major technological disruptions that you are going to see in the years to come? Maybe in 2047, probably humans may start living longer. They might live for 150 years for sure by the turn of this century. Future war will not be in the space, will not be in the earth, but it can be everywhere. Artificial brain may become a reality. You may have genetically manufactured babies. You may have space colonies. Of course, flying cars are going to become a reality not too far away. Maybe in 10 years, all over Bangalore, you will have people delivering foods using unmanned aerial vehicle. Lot of things are going to change in the way we are going to live in the planet because of disruption. But what is the impact of this on engineering education? Because the SIT being an engineering college, the only great message is please be ready to lose jobs. The university education is not going to help you beyond 4 to 5 years. Colleges have to reinvent themselves. You need to adopt continuously. And the only reason or the only saying that might probably help the entire humanity is what Paramahamsa said, as long as I live, so long do I learn. Your learning is not going to start with schools or colleges and end there, but it is going to remain with you forever. We never saw cell phones in our life. It was just a disruption. In fact, to be very honest, I never even used a computer till I was in the third year of my engineering course. But today, a kid which is born actually is born with a cell phone. So the main important part in this entire exercise is we shouldn't get into comfort zone and ensure that we enjoy this journey of new disruptive technologies and march ahead, live in harmony with our inner nature and outer nature, and not fall into the classical 5-4-3-2-1 syndrome, as I call it. We should not be worried about getting, say, a 5-figure salary, probably a 4-wheeler, a 3-bedroom house, maybe one daughter or one son, and then maybe one wife or one husband. Life is far beyond that. Contribution to society is the ultimate destination, as Swami Vivekananda said, Atmano mokshartam jagathitaya cha. What are the kind of technologies one can really look for in the years to come? I think solar powered chemistry is one area which is going to dominate like anybody's business. Green hydrogen, as you have already seen, is something which is actually revolutionizing the entire industrial setup. How do we get rid of carbon dioxide? How do we actually minimize the ozone layer effect? How can we make climate better? How do we get rid of fossil fuel? All of this is going to hinge upon the fundamental science. Friends, without science there can be no engineering, there can be no technology. In fact, science is more like Brahmadeva, which is the foundation on which the entire engineering avatars like Dashavatar is going to come into picture. If Brahma is science, probably Vishnu or Narayana is like engineering, Shiva is like technology, because the day it is born, he is going to die. We are also going to look at several painless injections in the years to come. Electric aviation is going to become a reality. although lithium-ion batteries are going to pose a very, very serious challenge in terms of biodegradability. People haven't really thought about it, but then electric aviation is not something carbon neutral as we really think about. Digital medicine is also going to become a reality. Green hydrogen is going to revolutionize the way we probably travel across continents, and several systems where people would travel between cities in half an hour to 20 minutes is going to become a reality. Of course, people are also looking at the whole genome synthesis, and it is in this context we are actually looking at a whole lot of industrial revolution 5.4 impacting us in the next 50 years. This industrial AI is here to stay, where the boundaries between discipline has actually completely disappeared. There will be no longer electronic engineer or computer engineer, because the technology will dominate the scene, and the domain expertise and your ability to adapt to large amount of data and your ability to access cloud and how do you go all the way from science to technology is going to dictate how one could really live comfortably. I am sure you may have to learn more about statistics, you may have to learn about neural network, optimization, whole lot of subjects in terms of diagnostics. In fact, several jobs have disappeared today because the jobs like maintenance, jobs like metrology, all of them have gone out from the industry. Today, a big industry which required something like, say, 10,000 people, you're able to manage them with hardly about 50 people. Automation and data analytics have changed the way we live. And maybe we can look at several technologies that have really come out in this entire future. For example, the digital twin that we talk today is a reality. Every time an aircraft flies, the data is actually stored from close to about 3,200 sensors only on the engine part, and it is transported all the way back to Derbyshire in, say, Rolls-Royce headquarters. And people are able to understand about the working of electromechanical systems real time. Autonomous operations, quantum computing, blockchain. I think the whole lot of things, including robotic and drones, are going to be around the world. I'll give you some examples of how these things have actually changed the way we are actually looking at many things. For example, you might have heard about an Iranian scientist getting killed in Israel, in Tehran, while he was actually having coffee. And what was very interesting is this entire operation, although this may look like a disruption, was actually controlled by a machine gun that you would see on the slide. And this was a robotic machine gun which was operated 3,000 kilometers away by Mossad people sitting in, say, Tel Aviv. Not only this was able to fire few bullets. In fact, it is said that hardly this entire operation took less than a minute. And only 15 bullets were fired. And this great gentleman was supposed to be behind the Iranian nuclear industry, was actually eliminated, and even the guy who was having coffee next to him was not armed. The facial photograph was taken, and through the GPS they were able to confirm he is the person, and the entire operation was done by a killer robot. Friends, this is no longer a fiction or a story that I am trying to narrate here. Being in the profession of science for the last 25 years, I am seeing how technology evolved by the ingenious intellectual capability of somebody in a laboratory today has started impacting life all around us. So robotics is here to stay in a big way. In fact, this is also interesting. I don't know if this video would play. I would just play that this is there in the Boston Dynamics. They have released it, where robots today are being trained, where they can become almost like soldiers. Maybe in 10 years' time, I do foresee there will be no soldiers on the battlefield. Probably robotic soldiers are going to take over several actions that we are doing to defend our country. Pilotless aircrafts, pilotless fighter aircraft is also a reality. And these are all very complex operations which are being practiced by robots. While I am talking to you about 3 months back, China has now officially given permission to manufacture something like 2,500 robots, which will help the shipyard guys to load and unload big containers. Slowly, a small creation in a laboratory is now becoming something reality as a technology impacting the life of almost all of us. You have several such things that you would find. In fact, this is another interesting thing by another company called Ninox, which is again available on the net, where now soldiers on the battlefield have started using miniature drones. Now these drones are so handy that a soldier who is going for a counter measure anti-terrorist operation can simply take out and launch a drone and then really figure out where exactly the enemy is sitting and have a dynamic interaction and awareness of the battlefield, which means many of these things were also used in the Ukraine war recently, where the GPS and the communication system played a major role in understanding how the destruction can be very severe. At the same time, man actually fights for supremacy, but at the end of the day, one has to, encroach the enemy's land. Now, these things may turn something more from a military perspective, but what I am trying to highlight here is these miniature drone and how they may affect our day-to-day life, like including the air taxis, flying cars, or maybe for delivery. All of this is going to become a reality in the next 20-30 years. Well, I have said about several things. I don't want to make this lecture too boring, but I will also tell you very briefly about what I do in IASC, because that is also important for an audience on the net today. I work in a laboratory called Laboratory for Hypersonics and Shockwave Research. Incidentally, Dr. Kalam, when he was alive, he inaugurated a Center of Excellence in Hypersonics, which I am fortunate to head since inception in way back from 2010. And this is one laboratory where we do a lot of work in aerospace engineering. In fact, this is the largest laboratory in the area of hypersonics and shockwave anywhere in the world. And these facilities, what you see, are all termed as shock tunnels and free piston tunnels. They can recreate Kalpana Chawla's kind of accidents in the laboratory for about few milliseconds. And based on this, ISRO and DRDO have built several big laboratories. The good thing about this lab is science can progress in a nation provided we are able to build things by our own hand. None of the equipment that you see, they are imported. They were all built by young students who actually came and joined us in this maddening journey maybe 25 years ago. Today, this lab has contributed by way of several technologies which has gone into practical application. In fact, we are very proud to say we have exported these kind of shock tunnel to United States for their research as well as their own science, which is a proud moment for India, because nobody will give you technology in these areas where you can really understand. Hypersonic essentially is about something where a vehicle can fly at velocities which are something like 6 to 10 times the speed of sound. In fact, there are future vehicles which are coming out where people are trying to build missile systems which can travel at about 6,000 kilometers per hour. In fact, China claims that it has a missile system. India is also planning to build something of this nature, and this is important for protecting the entire safety and security of a nation. Not only military application, in fact, in Germany there has been a startup company called Destinus who are now trying to look at building a hypersonic cargo transfer where anywhere in the world you could move at about 1.5 hours time. So these are very exciting time where the distance is going to shrink. The entire world is going to become a globe, but then we need to live in harmony with the nature. So that would be the real key. Of course, we have built several facilities where these kind of things could be done in our own country. This is again a proud moment. When we started, probably we were looking at, we in fact put money from our own pocket to begin this work way back in the 90s. But I am glad that today we are recognized as one of the leading laboratories in shockwave and hypersonics around the world. And hypersonics is one of the very frontier areas where a lot of investment is happening, both in US as well as in China, Russia, and in Europe. So that this is going to become a reality. Maybe we can fly from Bangalore to Delhi in 15 minutes, Tokyo to New York in 1.5 hours time. And that is not a fiction, friends. Of course, there are quite a few startups which have come out. While I will not talk about many of those things, except to tell you, science is never recognized by a society. Society sees only technology. Technology will die the day it is born. It is in this disruption one has to live and continue to learn. In fact, when we started off with the scientific exposition of what happens to epithelial cell when they are interacting with shock wave, led us to invent a new system. Today we are using shock waves which are considered very dangerous in regular military parlance for healing wounds in even diabetic patients. So much so that we have found the controlled use of shock is able to heal a frostbite which could which could actually affect a soldier who is on a snow-capped mountain near Himalayas guarding our great nation. There are several inventions which are actually happening in our own setup, but at the end of the day, what is very key is our attitude will decide our altitude. It is essential for us to have a very healthy respect for everybody's science. At the same time, make sure that India becomes truly Atmanirbhar, because if we don't really become strong enough from in our own inner sense and build products which are required for the country, no nation is going to give us anything new. Science is here to stay, and science is all about asking the question why and finding answers to that. And Lakshmi and Saraswati can reside in the same house. We all should have the D4 model of innovation. We should dream, design, deliver, and make dollars. Friends, thank you very much. Hearty congratulations on the Diamond Jubilee.